Hey guys, welcome back to another Warzone 2.0 video. In today's video, we are going to be talking currently about the state of Warzone 2.0 and how the community feels about it and stuff. So this video is more of just kind of an opinion piece, and I want to just kind of discuss this topic at large. This isn't about any new leaks or information or anything like that. So you guys can just basically sit back, enjoy some of the gameplay, and then just kind of listen, and we can have a giant discussion about this in the comments down below, because I'm sure some of you guys are going to have different opinions on this, which I'd love to hear, and I'd love to see what kind of solutions we can come up with, because I think this one is a big sore spot for the community. And basically what I'm talking about here is just the fact that Warzone 2 is being forced by the community to turn into Warzone 1. So the community has been very vocal ever since Warzone 2 was released about these changes. I mean, even prior to that, when it was revealed at Call of Duty Next, and they revealed and they talked about some of the new changes and stuff that are going to be happening to Warzone 2.0, the community was very against it at the time. There was talk that they're going to be going more towards looting and stuff, and it's going to be kind of a bit more like a traditional battle royale rather than the type of battle royale we got with Warzone. And of course, Warzone has evolved over time, and it's changed and stuff. So it's, the Warzone 1 we have today, because you can still go back and you can still play it currently. Currently, you can only play Caldera, but, nonetheless, if you go back and you play Caldera, it is still different than where it was when, the game first came out and you could play Verdansk. So there are some key fundamental differences there. But also going between Caldera, playing Warzone 1 right now, and playing Warzone 2 with Al Mazrah, it is interesting. I've seen a bunch of people on Twitter talk about this, saying that they've gone back and they started playing Warzone 1 again, and they're just, so relieved of how good it feels and how great of a game it is and stuff. But then I see these same people consistently still coming back and playing Warzone 2 over and over again. I get that, it's the new game, it's the flavor of the month. Posting Warzone 1 content right now is not going to get you almost any views. Everyone wants to talk about Warzone 2, and everyone wants to post stuff about the new one. Going back and playing the old stuff is almost never popular and just won't bring you the same sort of interactions and growth like playing the new game will. So like I said, the community has been very vocal about how they do not like certain changes within Warzone 2.0. Some of those changes and stuff are stuff like, you cannot plate while you're sprinting. The fact that not all the buy stations are the same. That there's limited stuff in the buy stations. So for example, you can only buy a certain number of UAVs, but also for the fact that not every single buy station on the map has a UAV in it. They all have different stuff in them. And personally, I like those changes. But then, we also have stuff like the fact that we have 3 circles, as well as, there is no small map, there's no rebirth. The fact that they've kind of handicapped Warzone 1. Now, that's kind of a different topic. I don't want to dive into that one too much right now. But there's a lot of stuff going on here with regards to Warzone 2. Even stuff including movement and stuff. People saying that armor is not the same, and, all sorts of different stuff. The community is very vocal about it, and saying that, Warzone 2 is not a good game, and that it needs to be more like Warzone 1. People also point to the Steam charts for Warzone 2 and pointed out that, the game only had something I want to just say off the top of my head, had 400,000 players, and has dropped off significantly since then. And people point to this as a gotcha to be like, oh, see, Warzone 2 is being, it's such a poor performing game, and it's all because of all these changes they've made to it. And people are also saying, content on YouTube and on Twitch and Twitter, stuff about Warzone 2.0 is not doing as well as people even compare it to Caldera when Caldera launched last year. People are like, oh, even when Caldera came out, Caldera videos were doing so much better. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't think it's, I think it's a combination of things. I don't think it's directly just, Warzone 2 bad, Warzone 1 good, and just boil it down to that. But I think there is some cause for concern there, that there is still some sort of connection there. And I think part of it also, too, is that, it seems very apparent with Warzone 2 that the game is focused more on casual play, whereas Warzone 1 kind of focused more so on, the streamer and the YouTuber side of things, where there were still plenty of things in there that, they took away from the community and made it harder on content creators, namely, the intense skill-based matchmaking. Creators have been very vocal about this, saying that, skill-based matchmaking in Warzone is terrible, and that's where you get all these kids using VPNs and stuff, and then, using geo filters and stuff in order to get around the skill-based matchmaking so they can play against, bot players, and they can drop 40 kills in a Resurgence map. And, it's stuff like that, that it's people will find a way around things, But still, I mean, we've had a ton of tournaments and stuff for Warzone 1, but at the same time, like, you got to think, like, everybody right now is looking back to Warzone 1 with rose-tinted glasses. I mean, the game isn't even 3 years old, and people are, really looking back on it being like, oh man, Warzone 1 was the greatest thing ever, even though, we completely forget about all the problems that the game has had. Like, do you guys even remember the state of the game last year when Caldera launched? The fact that when Caldera launched, like, the game was pretty much unplayable for about 2-3 months, where pretty much the entire month of December the game was just straight busted. Because I remember that, and I remember how upset the community was about that. But everybody loves to go back and have rose tinted glasses about this, and people are like, oh no, but if they brought back Verdansk, it would solve everything. And I'm like, Verdansk was a solid map, it was a good start, but like, seriously, like, Verdansk was kind of dog water, if you think about it. It was not honestly that great of a map. It was all right, but the fact that we had Verdansk for like 2 years was kind of insane. And personally, I mean, I really disliked that. Now, I come from this place of love for the game. Obviously, I like Warzone. I want to see Call of Duty grow and see it succeed. But also, I am a fan of Blackout. That's where my heart has always been. Is when Blackout came out, that was my go-to battle royale. I absolutely love Blackout. And so when Warzone came out, things were a little bit different, and I didn't feel the same way about Warzone. But part of that was also because of the way I felt about Modern Warfare 2019. Now, that's also a topic for another video. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. So when Infinity Ward, initially talked about some of these changes going into Warzone 2.0, I had numerous conversations with people about this, and the general consensus we all came to was that it seemed like Warzone 2.0 is going to be kind of going more towards, a Blackout battle royale rather than a Warzone battle royale. And I think they were going to be trying new things, and I thought that was very good. I was like, wow, this could be a very good change for the franchise if they adapt things from Blackout and put those into Warzone 2.0. It could be really good, as well as the fact that they have seemed very obvious that they are promoting kind of casual play within Warzone 2.0. And all in all, I think it has been great. When it first came out, it was a solid game. I haven't played it as much as I'd like to, but that is more so, not for the game itself, but more, other time constraints going on in my life. But Warzone 2, I feel like is a solid game. I feel like I'm more casual player now than I have been in the past. It is a very good game for me. Now, I'm not, even though I am a YouTuber or whatever, I'm not one of these sweaty YouTubers who will go in and I have to have every single match has to feel like a CDL tournament, and that, I've got $20,000 on the line, and I just did a line of G Fuel before I hopped in. I have my Scuff controller ready to go, and I got my Astro headset all set up, and I got my VPN locked in, and I got my 1 mil, like, all this crap, like, I'm not one of those players. I like to sit back. Half the time I don't even have my headphones on. I'm literally sitting here eating dinner while I'm playing a match, and I have a YouTube video going on, some documentary or something like that. So, like, the way I play games now compared to the way I played even like 3 years ago is completely different. So I would say I'm more of a casual player now than I ever have been. And so as kind of a more casual player, I can see the appeal of Warzone 2.0. But then also I feel like I'm more involved in the community than a lot of casual players are, where I see the community's feedback on Twitter and on YouTube and Reddit and stuff, where you can see the community's backlash about Warzone 2.0, about them saying that it's too slow and that, the gulag is bad and all sorts of stuff. And the way the community acts is that they want essentially Warzone 2 to be a clone of Warzone 1. And to me that makes no sense, because they literally basically want Warzone 1 to come back with a new map, and that's it. They don't want any changes to the game. They don't want any changes to the movement. They don't want any changes to like even some of the maps and stuff. They want Verdansk back. They don't even want new maps. They want Verdansk back. They want to freaking keep playing the same battle royale for years and years and years, and just think it's going to be the most greatest thing ever. And it's like, guys, it's not 2020 anymore. People have moved on. Like, yes, that was an interesting time of our lives with the pandemic and stuff and work from home, where you're stuck in lockdown. You could play Warzone and play in Verdansk, but like, guys, we're literally 5 days away from 2023, and people are still like, oh man, Verdansk was so good. I really hope they bring it back. Which, like, they are within Warzone Mobile, so you can still go back and play it, as well as you can still play it within Modern Warfare 2019 through Ground War, as well as Spec Ops and stuff. But I don't know. Everyone just looks at the game with like rose-tinted glasses, and they're trying to force that onto Warzone 2.0. And I personally don't like that. But it's interesting to see that Infinity Ward and Raven now, they have actually kind of taken the side of the community on a lot of that stuff, where they've reduced the cost of some of the loadouts and stuff. And that's another whole topic, is the loadouts. You know, everybody wants loadouts to come back. Everybody wants to be able to, you know, get a loadout marker and to be able to get their loadout real fast within the game. And that they also want, you know, the free loadouts to drop quicker and stuff. And like Infinity Ward and Raven have made some changes to that, where it drops like an entire circle faster, as well as I believe they also recently put out an update saying that you could actually buy a whole loadout drop, like a whole loadout box. You could actually buy one in the buy stations. Now it scales with how many players you have in the match, but you could actually still buy one, as well as they also half the price of buying just your primary weapon as well. And that was another change where I thought, hey, this is an interesting change. You know, less buy like loadout drops means that you're going to be more so reliant on actually picking stuff up off the ground. Now, I think their implementation of it needed work. I think in Warzone 2.0, the fact that, yes, you only have, like, you know, ground loot, but you're not making a loadout like you were in, say, Blackout. So I'm going to kind of compare Blackout here in a little bit. So with Blackout, you know, you'd find a gun. So let's say, for example, you'd find an ABR or a Paladin. You'd find that weapon, and then you'd go and load out and loot, and you'd get a bunch of attachments and stuff, and you'd build your loadout throughout a match. That way, you know, by the time you ended up in the final circle, it was basically all about, you know, okay, who could loot the best stuff? And every time you killed somebody, you would always go over and you'd loot their stuff, and you'd try and get all their best stuff. So you'd grab their armor. You know, you had different tiers of armor. You grab their armor, you grab any like armor plates they had, you grab all their heals, you you know, grab perks and stuff that they had off of them, as well as you'd also grab weapons if they had good weapons, and you'd also grab their attachments. So even if, you know, they had a weapon you didn't want, they could still potentially have an attachment you wanted. And so you'd take that attachment and put it on your gun, and you'd build your loadout. That way, by the time you got to the final circle, it was, you know, whoever looted and whoever did the best, you know, actually scavenging throughout the map, combined with, you know, gunplay, and who had the best skill would end up actually winning gunfights and winning the match. And I really liked that, because it was a combination of skill, but also a little bit with luck in there, where, you know, you'd have to drop and you'd have to have an element of strategy of, okay, I'm going to come over here, this is a good area of the map, there's a lot of loot here, there's a good chance I can find some good weapons and stuff, but because of that, there's probably also a lot of other players over here, so I could, you know, potentially get wiped over here, and it's going to be kind of contested over here. So, you know, there's high risk, high reward to that. I really like that aspect of Blackout, but the fact that, you know, we don't have that in Warzone 2.0 is kind of disappointing, because it's like they tried to have their cake and eat it too. You know, they tried to have like no loadouts, but then they also didn't have any looting to the same aspect that Blackout did, where you don't actually build your loadout by actually getting attachments and stuff. So it's like, of course, you know, your loadout weapon is always going to be better than a ground tier weapon. It's always going to be better, because you could put on the best attachments, all these attachments that work perfectly with each other. But, you know, that's also a double-edged sword, because in Warzone, I always felt that Warzone was kind of got super boring and repetitive, because when you can get your loadout and you can choose which weapon you use in a battle royale literally every single match, to me it made it no fun, because I'm like, okay, what's the point of this? It just feels like a big version of multiplayer. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to literally just go and play multiplayer. If I want to use a specific weapon to rank it up and stuff, I'm going to go just do it in multiplayer. You know, Battle Royale, to me, was supposed to be, you know, like I explained, you know, a kind of a game of strategy, but also luck with skill involved too, where you actually have to find stuff, and then you have to make best do with your weapons, because sometimes you would just have a dog water weapon, and, you know, you'd end up in the final circle, and you're like, oh, crap. Well, everybody in the final circle has like level 3 armor, and they've got great weapons, and all I've got is this weapon with only a couple attachments on it. And in that case, it really came down to skill. And I mean, there's still an element of that in Warzone 2.0, where, you know, you could have an enemy who has their full loadout weapon, and you only have like a crappy ground tier weapon with only a couple attachments on it. And yeah, you know, your skill is going to have to, you know, overcome that disparity there. But the fact that, you know, we have this discrepancy where you can't loot to the same aspect like you could in Blackout. Like, I hope this makes sense, that you can't loot and build your loadout, that you actually have to still get your loadout. I think, like I said, it's where they want to have their cake and eat it too. So in that aspect, I can understand the community's frustrations with that, where they want the loadouts to come back, but at the same time, I've still got hesitations with loadouts coming back because, like I said, in my opinion, I don't think you should be able to get your loadout right away. And this is another thing is that, streamers and everybody's just like, oh my gosh, everybody just gets enough money to hurry up and get their loadout, and then they literally just get their loadout weapon, and then they just go kill for the rest of the match. And I'm like, where's the fun in that? It literally just turns into a giant game of ground war where essentially you only have a single life or whatever. Or, with the gulag, yes, you could come back and your teammates could buy you back or whatever, but, like, seriously, what difference does it make in Warzone compared to, say, ground war? Because if you can choose your loadout, you can, pick what weapon you have and all this stuff, what difference does it make than, traditional multiplayer? To me, it makes no sense, and I'd rather actually find weapons and use skill to overcome that. Now, there's a difference there. That's why I prefer other Battle Royales over Call of Duty's, but I still like Call of Duty multiplayer. So kind of going back on topic, it is interesting to see Raven and Infinity Ward make some changes where they're not fully going back to the formula of Warzone 1.0, where they're not, completely coming back with, like, loadout drops all the time and stuff like that, as well as, like, loot, like, plating while you're running, stuff like that, as well as, people complain about the movement system and how it's not as good as it was in Warzone 1. And I'm like, okay, part of that was also because half you guys were playing on PC with your FOV cranked, and you're playing against somebody on a base PS4 playing on a 70-inch TV with like 4 beers deep, and just because you can break their camera angles, you're like a god tier movement player or whatever. And it's like, no. Now, because the fact that everybody can crank their FOV regardless of console, it means the game is bad. But nobody wants to say that, though. Like, everybody wants, they want this advantage, but they get mad when everybody is put on the same playing field. So, stuff like that, I'm just like, dude. As well as, I don't know, the community is very vocal about this, about essentially, like I said, essentially turning Warzone 2.0 into Warzone 1. And that's my problem with it overall, is that, with all these changes, they're bringing it back more towards Warzone 1. And I get, yes, some of these changes are unpopular, and you have to make changes to a game to appease the community. But I feel like there comes a point where you kind of have to stand your ground with some things and realize that, hey, this is supposed to be a new game, and this is not supposed to be the exact same thing. Everybody outside of the Call of Duty community, people from other communities in the gaming sphere, they look at Call of Duty and they think every single year is the same exact game. It's the same formula, it's literally the same thing year after year after year. Now, within the COD community, we know that's not exactly true. I mean, some things are the same. But yes, at the end of the day, you have new stuff, new features, tons of, new things. Obviously, it's not the exact same thing year after year. But that's the problem here, is that the community is trying to make Warzone 2.0 a little, like, exact copy of Warzone 1. That's why I complain about them trying to bring back Verdansk. I'm like, why are we going to bring back a map? Like, yes, it's cool bringing back maps. I love playing on Raid in Cold War multiplayer. Yes, that's a Black Ops 2 map. But at the same time, playing on old maps gets old after a while. Sometimes you just want to play on a new one. So honestly, I'd rather them, yes, it's fun to bring back old maps and play on them on occasion, but at the same time, you need new maps with new good ideas to make progress. I think Al Mazrah is a very solid Battle Royale map, and I'm glad to see, what they've done with it, and I'm glad to see it, happen within Warzone 2.0, but I'm also excited to see where they go from here as well. It'll be interesting to see. As well as, I think it could be fun for them to bring back an old map, but I don't think we solely need to rely on nostalgia and follow in the footsteps of previous games. I think having a game like Warzone 2.0 where you make leaps and bounds and you change up the formula, in this case, somewhat dramatically, is actually a good thing, and I think the community should kind of learn to accept that this is not Warzone 1. If you really love Warzone 1, you can still go back and play it. Yes, it's true, you can't go back and you can't play Rebirth. You can't play Fortune's Keep. You can't play Verdansk. But you can still play Caldera. Caldera is not the greatest map, but you can still play it. Your movement is still there. Your loadouts are still there. All that crap is still there. So if you really love the game, you can still play it. Nobody is getting rid of Warzone 1.0 or Warzone 1 yet. This is subject to change. I'm sure after a little while they will. Warzone 2.0 is going to be sole Call of Duty Battle Royale. But for now, you can still go back and play it. I don't think we need to turn the newest one into a direct copy of the previous one. I think there still needs to be room for innovation and changes. And I think, having a new title and a clean break was a perfect opportunity for that. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts about this in the comments down below. This is just something that's been on my mind for the last, 2 or 3 months, talking about Warzone and stuff. The community's reaction is, I'm like, why are we trying to turn Warzone 2 into a copy of Warzone 1? I don't get it. Like, I get it, but I also don't get it. So if you guys have an opinion on this, let me know in the comments down below. What do you guys think? Because, I mean, this is just my take on it. Obviously, I've got some biases and stuff here. I've got different opinions and stuff. I see things differently than you guys. So, yeah, I want to hear, you guys' thoughts on this. Let's have a discussion. And maybe you can change my mind. I feel like I'm a very open-minded person. So, let's have a discussion. Let's see what we can come up with as a community here. And kind of find some middle ground, because I think Warzone 2.0 has a lot of great potential, as well as I still think that Warzone 1 was a solid game. I can see why members of the community really enjoyed it. So yes, it'll be very interesting. I'm curious to see what the developers take from the community, as well as where they stand their ground with, and what they actually do take from the community and change. So what do you guys think? Let me know about this in the comments down below. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Give it a thumbs up if you have enjoyed, as well as get subscribed if you're new around here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.